Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Hughes from Designing Digitally, and today on the TLD cast, I have Matt Pierce from TechSmith. And
What's up?
Matt is joining us from Michigan, which is just below the state that I am in Ohio.
Above,
And,
above,
or
we're
above,
above
I'm
you.
sorry, yeah. Well, it depends. If we're
Geography.
talking about football, you guys are definitely below us. But if it's,
Oh, burn.
sorry, Buckeyes, Ohio State football. I was having this conversation the other day. Football is like a religion in Ohio, to the point where I really truly feel that Ohio is the Texas of the Midwest. And I keep telling my buddies risks, and the risk people like Duncan and Art and that they keep talking about Texas, and I'm like, oddly enough, everything that you say, steak, land, football, hunting, it's all here. It's all in Ohio.
Well, I'm smack dab where I live is right between Michigan, University of Michigan, and Michigan State. And so I catch it from all sides, and I'm an IU grad. So,
Oh
well,
no! Wah, wah.
IU basketball, sure. Football, not so much.
IU has a beautiful campus, though. So
They do.
you picked a good place. I'm just surprised that Michigan let you come back after you went there.
Funny enough, I have two older brothers. Both also went to school in the state of Indiana, not IU, but so all my siblings, we all went out of state at some point for our education. So I don't know what
You
that
guys,
says.
you know what that says? That says cha-ching to the education side. For all of you that don't have kids yet or haven't worked in the university setting, you will find out what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So mine was grad school. I feel like grad school is a little bit different decisions that you're making about where you're
Yeah.
going. Undergrad I was still out of state, but out west in Utah, so a little different there too.
Well, let me ask you this, because you do a lot of speaking engagements. My gosh, you and I have played Dungeons and Dragons at so many conferences, and we've hung out at so many times. You're always a great person to hang out with, always very positive. A lot of people know that you work for TechSmith. A lot of people know that you're really big into video, but I don't know if they know the backstory of Matt and that graduate school and what led you to TechSmith and how you ended up in this training industry. And the reason why is, Snagit and TechSmith's products are being used across the board in business. So I
Yeah.
guess this is a question that I don't know if you've been asked, and I think this is interesting because you are somebody that is a pretty big influence when it comes to video. And so tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where we are today.
Yeah, so interesting enough, my training journey started. I was a missionary for my church 2 years. I got to do a lot of training kind of situations. I was in a lot of leadership positions where I was like teaching people, but didn't make that connection, right? Like didn't know what that meant. I went home and I'm like, maybe I want to be a teacher, and kind of was looking at that, but I didn't really want to teach. I didn't really want to work with kids. I wasn't. I didn't feel like that passion or that draw. And I was like, I don't know what this means. And I went to school at Brigham Young University for my undergrad. I was like,
Yeah.
I was married. My wife's like, hey, you need to graduate. And I'm like, fastest degree to done is sociology, which is not
Uh-huh.
not a great degree to go out into the workforce with. And so I was at BYU and I saw a flyer for this poster and it said semester abroad or semester in Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in
Ooh.
politics and kind of interested. That might be cool. And I'm like, just had this really strong feeling like I need to look into that. So called my wife up from school, like, hey, I think I'm going to want to do this program. She's like, okay, when's it due? I'm like, well, today's Friday, so today. And she's like, well, go find out about it. You're crazy, kind of thing. And so I went up. I went up to the program where they're running it, and they said, we'll give you an extension through the weekend, but you need to have applications ready and find some jobs to apply to, because you go and you work, and then you have some of this educational portion. And I was like, okay, sure. And there was two jobs I applied for. One was at the Canadian Embassy, where I had spent 2 years as a missionary. I thought that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And then one was with a group called the Federal Judicial Center. the FJC, which I had no idea what that really meant, but they are basically part of the administrative arm of the federal court system, and they happen to do all the training for federal courts. So a lot of bankruptcy courts, all the courts have to have training, and kind of at the centralized level, that's what the FJC was doing. They were willing to pay me more money, which was still not a lot, to go live in DC. And so I went and I did a semester, and I had 4 different managers during that semester. One, I reported to one a day, which was a really weird setup. Yeah.
Wild.
Like Monday did work for this person, Tuesday this person, and so on.
I see.
And it was this amazing, like, oh my gosh, people do this for a living. And one of the guys I worked for, consider a mentor. His name is Michael Burney. I think now it's Michael Gottlieb. Long story, but Michael was really progressive. This was 2002, and he started what he called a knowledge exchange. Basically, think about almost like a Wikipedia or a knowledge place where these bankruptcy courts and other courts could upload manuals, training documents, all this stuff, and then share that across, because banks aren't all, or not banks, but courts aren't all standardized, like the Fifth Circuit Court versus the Sixth or whatever, Ninth Circuit Court. They're doing creating a lot of their own documentation and training materials, and this became a way for them to share that information. It was my first place I experienced an unconference or I guess we call it open space in the day, where basically there's no set agenda until you get there, then you make it, and then you actually go and have a whole conference built around that. Pretty amazing. Bankruptcy courts they were implementing a software system, and you had kind of wave 1, wave 2, all the wave 1 bankruptcy courts came, wave 2 bankruptcy courts came, so they could learn. And we had notes in it. Like every session we had a note taker, and part of my role was to make sure things were happening, and then making sure that all the notes from day 1 got compiled into like a whole booklet, which we were using every single printer and every copier in the FJC to make booklets to hand out for the next day. So that was my introduction. I came back and said, holy cow, people do this. Ended up finding out that there's this guy that seemed to be a big name. So I thought in the kind of world of learning development in terms of theory, Charles Reigeluth, he was a BYU grad at Indiana University, and he was happening to speak at BYU because as like a distinguished alumni or something like that. I went to hear him speak, said, hey, I'm really interested in this thing. Didn't have the right language for it. He's like, sure, well, just go ahead and apply. Like, okay. So applied there and a couple other places, and ended up going to IU to learn about this. And it was a really great experience, met fantastic people, kind of thought, wow, this is great. Went out and got a job at a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant where I was doing health and safety stuff, how not to die, as I like to say. And it was awesome. And then it was a contract gig, though, as contract gigs go, probably not long term. And you're like, okay, I need to make my next move. And my wife's like, we're buying a house. We're not moving. Stay in Indiana. Like, not finding any jobs. And finally I'm like, I'm going to look in Michigan because there's never any jobs in Michigan. And there's this company called TechSmith that make this product like Snagit. Oh, I know Snagit. And that was 2006. And I've been here ever since and just gone through a lot of different positions. Instructional designer. I had the opportunity to build a training team from the ground up. Then took on roles like I was running training and the documentation team, doing technical stuff and also technical support. Then I actually moved to marketing, where I was doing a video team and social media, ended up running PR for a little while. And then kind of all those things have converged into what I get to do now, which is still create content, still think about learning, still make video, and get an awesome chance to go out and meet so many people to get to talk to and help them learn about video, help them see the potential there, and then also learn about products like Snagit and Camtasia.
I'll tell you, man, that is a fascinating story. What a cool story. See, for me, the story of where you come from and what has taken place to get you here, to me, is just as important as the person that you're promoting or putting out all the time. And in my opinion, that's why I asked this, because we all know you, man. Every time you walk through a conference, there's not you have more people coming up to you giving you handshakes and hugs than you do have people walking by you not knowing who you are. So for me, I was always curious if they knew this driven Matt that I know, and if they were to be able to get that backstory. So I love to hear that, and I love that you have had what I personally consider to be very, very important in a career and in a life, was that mentor. And what I see, and I know we're going off tangent, and I hope everybody's okay if we talk a little bit about mentorship. We're going to get into video, but it's fascinating because I have one also, and he's like a second father, and his name's Scott Waltower, and he's been my mentor, practically a second father to me since I was, I think, 13, and it gives you, at least for me, it's a different perspective. This person doesn't replace your parental figures or your boss figures, but it's somebody that will provide guidance with no stake in the game. And for some weird reason, and I tell you this because, Matt, we've had this conversation. Heck, we've communicated back and forth with Designing Digitally and TechSmith on many different occasions and provided ideas to each other. And one of the things is neither of us have a stake in the game. It was to just help each other because we care. And what I find is when you have an outside point of view that can look at things and give you feedback, you're more likely to be able to see a better perspective from that. And I think mentors do that for you. At least in my opinion, they do. Not everybody needs a mentor, but tell me a little bit about what was your relationship with your mentor.
So, I mean, to be fair, it was a short term, right? And it was like that semester, and then it kind of carried on probably for another year. But the thing is, he was always encouraging. Like, he didn't treat me like an intern, which like, I think that's something I've also tried to do. And to be fair, I feel like I've had lots of people in our industry, L&D, that have been really, like, I look to in that same way, because I'm like, I want to go and I want to know what they think. I want to know what they're after right now. So one, so I can help them, but two, so I can learn from that. But the thing about that relationship was he was just very encouraging. He was willing to correct me. Sometimes when I was like being just dumb and arrogant, or just mostly just stupid, or something that, like, I was assuming things, and that he put that trust. Like, he's like, you're gonna make something great. Just go do it. Figure it out. Like, he really pushed me to do that. And then he also was really someone who I saw as very progressive, right? Like 2002, there was internet, but the technology that we had wasn't fantastic, especially federal government. But he was always trying to get me to think about, like, well, how would that work? What could you do more? How could you take this thing over here and repurpose it for this thing here? Because why wouldn't we? Why, like, you guys remember classmates.com or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah.
Stupid thing. He's like, well, how could that work for us? And, like, thinking about the federal courts, how could we reuse those ideas to make something that's going to be purposeful and meaningful, and allow this? He was always talking about connection and making sure, like, getting people together. And that just rubbed off on me. And, just willing to take me under his wing and make me feel like it was more than just a job, more than just an internship. Like when he had me and my family over for, breakfast one morning, because he cared beyond just me, me as what work I could provide. And I think that was something important. And I feel like that's what I try to do now. Like, I don't know that I necessarily look at myself as a mentor to a lot of people or anybody really, but, like, I want to be that person. I want to care about what's going on, not just that you use my products. That's great. But really, I try to care about the people behind that, because everyone's got their story. Everyone's got their issues. And if I can make your life a little bit better, and also provide, like, through TechSmith, provide some products that make that easier, that's awesome.
You're dead on. There's a comment in here from a friend of ours, a mutual friend actually, Mark Laszloff. Mark says, he didn't have a mentor. I know Mark very well. Mark and I bust each other's chops on a weekly basis. Mark, here's what I can tell you. Knowing the person that you are now, you have mentally said, "I will be that mentor for other people," and you really do, man. You've given a great advice to many people. Some of it they may not have liked, but some of it they have, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. So, and back to your comment, Matt, about the mentoring. I'm always told I care too much, and I think that is that mentoring piece. I was provided somebody that has cared my entire life, almost like a second father. I want to do the same, not just for the people that I work with, but for the industry. That's why you already know I'm over here trying to burst bubbles about, badges are not the answer, and things like that, because it's not for personal gain at all. To be honest with you, it's the let's help the industry, let's help each other, because when this is all said and done and the lights go out on us, there's nothing but the influence and the memories that you made that's left. So, not to get deep, just being honest with everybody.
Yeah,
And
I think here's the thing: we all have things that we need to do, right? Like you've got a company to run. I've got, my job is to represent TechSmith in so many different places, ways to be thinking about how people can be doing this stuff better with video and images. But I feel like that you have to have that trust, right? And that's got to be real. And someone that used to work at TechSmith a long time, she's been gone about 3 or 4 years. She was our evangelist. That was her actual title.
yeah,
She taught me this, right? Like Betsy Weber, she was all about
oh
connecting
yeah,
with people
Betsy.
first.
Yeah,
And I learned from that, like, look, it doesn't matter how good our products are or anything. If people don't feel like they can trust the company, and for better or for worse, that's my job, that I need people to trust the company. But beyond that, like I want you to trust me because I want to bring something of value whenever I'm in front of a crowd, whenever I'm on here, whenever we're together, that there's going to be, I want to have value. And it's not just product. Products only go so far. It's that understanding, it's that listening, that caring. And at the end of the day, I'm looking for that in return from people, right? Like a company I work with, and I've there's a few out there that I know that I don't feel like I ever get that return or that return investment from. And I was like, that's really hard for me to want to use what they're offering because I don't
yeah.
feel it. And I think human nature is such that we probably are all a lot like that. And sometimes if that means my product's not the right product for you, I'm going to tell you that because I'd much rather you be satisfied on all fronts and then know that I'm going to be honest with you about that and everything else. So that way, when it does come time and I can be like, hey, this is good. Or you're like, give me a recommendation. That recommendation actually means something.
Man, you were dead on. And here's what I've always said, and this is the Midwest in you coming out, like oozing
Oh, so
out.
much Midwest.
So much Midwest. Well, here's why. We all want to make a big impact in the world. And I always say this, and for some of you, you may laugh, but I'm in training because I have a passion for training. I love to see people learn. I'm not here just to try to cash grab, get rich, and go. If that was the case, I would have stayed in sales and marketing. Um, so for me, I love to see how we in the training in the L&D space can change the world without anybody ever knowing. And what's fascinating is you guys got hundreds of thousands and millions of people that are signing up for Snagit and utilizing it to communicate across the board. And you never get to see that. The same thing on our side. We build custom training, and whether that's a simulation, a serious game, or a mobile app or something of that nature, there's two things. Number one, you're only as good as your last product and the last project that you created. And then two, let your work speak for yourself. And that's where I'm talking about with the Midwest side is we, rather than just boast about it, let's, show it. Let's see it. And I truly feel that you embody that whole mentality. And from my experience with TechSmith, I find that you guys all embody that. Even ironically, we were just at DevLearn, and I got to nerd it up with the product development team. And oh man, nothing better than for me to be like, oh guys, we should try this, you should try this, you should try that, and then the looks on their faces like, yeah, we're already doing some of that, Andrew, but thanks for that, buddy.
Well, I think that Midwest thing is also, I'm much more likely to tell you what's wrong than you to like. You'll be like, don't tell me what's wrong with this. You're selling me. Well, no, I can't help it. I just
Yeah,
it just kind of made. I can't. Like, I just sold a car, and it's like, oh well, let me tell you all the things that are wrong with the car before you buy it, because I would feel bad if you drove away and I didn't tell you
exactly.
that one time I heard a noise or whatever it is, right? Like, maybe to a fault sometimes, and it's something that I've been counseled on about, like, hey, maybe but like, I think that's the thing. I want to see that from people. I want to see what you put forward, and I'm going to disagree with you though. I don't think that we're as good as our last product. I think,
Yeah.
because I've seen, and I've been TechSmith is very fortunate to have made tools for a very long time, and we've had some that when it hit release, it wasn't
Yikes.
great, right?
Yeah.
It had problems, or there was issues, or we missed something, or we thought it was going to be like, oh, this was a need and it wasn't a need. I think if you build, but it's less about the last product and much more about the track record, right? And I think, at least in my estimation, people are as good as their track record, and if their track record is trending in the right way, we're cool. If it's not trending in the right way, it's a little harder. But and maybe again, that's the Midwest nice in me, but like, I think there's room for people that, like, I want people to be able to feel free that they can make a project and not be its best, but knowing that, like, they're capable of better, so that they're going to keep growing. And obviously, I always want to do my best. I always want to put something out there that's 100% awesome. But frankly, I'm like, in presentations, I've given presentations and walked away and said, "Oh crap, I did not nail that. I flat out did not do what I needed to do in that." And hopefully, then that's just a motivation to get better.
Well, if it makes you feel any better about your presentations, I've been in many of them, and I've never felt like that. So,
Good.
sure, just putting that out there. But the feeling of that has happened to me many of times, because depending on who exactly is in the room, the target demographic, what their background is, you get a much different experience, which we talked about. We were just having the conversation about the background music that I'll play during the presentations, which was fun that one year, but I could not mimic that again if I even tried. So for all of you that don't know, I played, this was at DevLearn a couple years ago, and it was a packed room, and I played film scores radio very, very lightly, just quietly. And I do not know. It was almost like the Pink Floyd Wizard of Oz timing situation, where every time I would end with like a bold statement about something, some of the music would come in with dun 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 or something.
Crescendoing at the right point. Yeah, it was pretty epic.
Yeah, it was. I wish we had that recorded.
Until you got to the point where you're playing that animated GIF or the video that kept looping of, like, Family Guy, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
That was stuck in the background, so you guys can imagine that this video is just playing in the background as sound. Yeah, that didn't work so well, but
yeah,
everything else.
I've muted that. I've muted that at this point. I saw the look on the faces. So, but hey, now that we're, we've went down mentorship, life of Matt. Now let's talk a little bit, because no, man, you know what? How many people? Let me ask you. How many people have actually asked you like that background story in any of these discussions?
Not very often.
See, that's what I mean. So, like, don't anybody steal my idea, all of you in the thing. But I'm going to start asking the background story, because it's interesting to see where people have come from and what they've done. And not for boasting, it's just get to see your perspective and that story behind you. So now that you're, at TechSmith, and I want to make this comment before we move on. 2006, it's 2019. I'm just going to put this out there. TechSmith, you are a lucky company to have long-term employees like that. And I don't mean that as if designing digitally is having a turnover. We just have a society now that we're on an average of 3 to 5 years per job. And so you're breaking the mold, buddy.
Well, and I think it's interesting because TechSmith has like, I mean, there's definitely waves of people that like you can see where we were growing and we hired a lot of people, and um, there's a lot of people that have been here not maybe quite as long as me, but there's people definitely that have been here longer than me, and there's a lot of people that like are in that 5 to 7 year range, and I think it's a couple factors, right? Like you've got a good culture, you've got a company that's doing really well, making cool products. I mean, and then we're a software company in the middle of Michigan, right? Like you're not on the coast, which is nothing wrong with the coast, but like if you want to be a developer, for instance, and you want to work on cool software, you've usually got to go to like Silicon Valley or to Washington, or maybe you got like the Silicon Slopes in Utah, or you got to find that place. And here we are in a place that's pretty affordable to live. It's very family friendly in terms of like, you know, commute wise. You're not spending an hour and a half in traffic, and so it's easy to get people here. They're like, well, I don't want to go have the San Francisco experience, so I can stay in mid Michigan and I can still write, you know, do great stuff in this industry. And so it's really cool in that sense.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I had that mentality. So I went to Bowling Green State University for my undergrad, which is right there in Northwest Ohio, just before you get up to Toledo and then into the rest of that state up there. Um, and
Toledo's not ours, man. You can have it.
Hey, yeah, well,
You
that's
won
fine.
it.
We fought over that bad boy. For all of you that don't know, Ohio and Michigan went to war over Toledo, and Ohio won, and Michigan got the Upper Peninsula.
One.
Yeah.
One.
Okay, we cried about it. You guys gave it, and we gave you a bunch of land up north
I
that's
still
frozen
think
that
we
no one
won.
wanted.
We got the better deal. We
You
got the
did.
Upper Peninsula, which
That's
is, if you
true.
haven't been to Upper Peninsula, it's a wilderness paradise. It's pretty
It
awesome.
is. But you can only visit during the month of May because other than that, it's miserable. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, so sorry to sidetrack. I went to Bowling Green, and when I graduated, I had an interactive media, digital design, and a graphic design. I double majored, and when I graduated, the first thing I thought was, all right, we're going to the West Coast. We're going to the East Coast. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go to LA because I want to be a 3D animator and a game developer. And here's what I found out. After doing the math, I realized that I would be mostly on contract work because for many of you that don't know about the gaming industry, actually being a developer in the gaming industry, you're a 1099 contractor for the most part. You are not. You are on a you got this project for 9 months and you're out the door. There is no, well, you're a long-term 30-year W-2 employee in the gaming realm. Doesn't happen. And if it does, you're very most likely in a larger upper management position. And so, long story short, what I found is moving to those locations, there's just as much talent here in the particular state that you are in that you can find these jobs all over. And what I find is there's video jobs, there's instructional design jobs, there's development jobs, full stack developers. They're wanting those all over in the Midwest, which I think is fascinating. So with that said, now that we're into the development side, let's talk a little bit about the video side, because you and I use video for many different ways and many different approaches to the video. And I am a big fan of obviously your product or products. But what I'd like to talk a little bit about is, you know, we're now in 2019 going into 2020. We're now seeing 360 video. We're now seeing all of this content that is just exponentially being built. In my opinion, YouTube has become the biggest knowledge repository that we could possibly even create. And so, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing as far as how we're moving in video. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in video, and what's your thoughts on 2020 in video?
So it's interesting, right? We have been hearing for years that, oh, 2018, 2016, year of the video. And I wouldn't be surprised as we get towards the end of the year wrap up, someone's going to say 2020, year of the video. And here's the thing, video is now, right? Like it is now. We are in this time. And I don't necessarily have like thoughts on, I don't know that video is going to necessarily fundamentally change kind of like format or design for 2020. I think we're on a path that any kid with a camera can make video. And the reality is, because any kid with a camera can make video, they are. And are they making great video? No, not necessarily. And I think we see, like you said, YouTube as a kind of this rise of YouTube as a video repository from everything that you ever want to see or learn about is there. And I think what's happening is you've got this whole generation, and I don't mean age generation. I'm not talking millennials or boomers or Xers.
Yeah.
I'm talking just like this grouping of people, whatever their age are, and it's really all ages, are saying, I have an opportunity to be passionate about making something or teaching something or doing something, and that might translate into some optional income. And
Yeah.
they're starting to get out there and they're just starting to pound out and make stuff. And again, it's not all good, but there's some they're figuring it out. Now, what they don't have is a learning background. And they're figuring out how to make effective content that's not only effective for basically, let me know how to do this thing, and we could talk about all the learning stuff, the science behind why it may or may not be effective, but they're figuring out so it's good enough, and they know how to optimize for the algorithm, which we're probably thinking like, well, I work in a company, why do I care about the algorithm? Because the reason that's important is because everyone that's going to be making video they might be making stuff that you want to teach your employees. So one, can you find it? Or two, they might be making stuff that competes with what you're trying to do. Whether you're, making like, hey, you want to make game design, or you want to do whatever, like you want to teach people how to make better video, like I do. Like my competition isn't necessarily a competitive product. Like, and I'm thinking, yes, Texas has lots of competitors, but like for what I do, my job, I'm competing with all the YouTubers who are making free tutorials on how to make video.
Yeah.
And they're good. And I know Mark Lassoff has a lot of thoughts about this, about how good they are, right? Like they're figuring out how to do it. Whereas I think L&D, we're still we're turning on lots of different fronts on different things. And not to say there's not good L&D video, but a lot of us we just don't know what to do. And we're trying to write documents, we're trying to do instructional design, we're trying to do all the other things and then also make video. And so I think what's got to happen is, for those who are going to use video, we've got to figure it out. We've got to get better. We've got to get faster, because really the competition is already out there and they're already doing this and they're specializing. And so I'd like to, figure whatever the medium is that you're doing with video, whether it's 360 or whether it's screen video or whether it's just, let me grab my phone real quick. You got the new iPhone and you're doing this, you've got to figure out how to do it fast and easy, because if you don't, someone else is going to figure this out. And that doesn't mean your job's in jeopardy necessarily. It just means that it's going to get harder for us to keep up. And it's going to be harder for us to kind of keep pace with what we need to do. Because unfortunately, I don't know about you guys, but I was never taught how to do this. Like I didn't go to a class and say, okay, now teach me how to do video. It's been mentoring, learning from others, asking lots of questions, reading, and then just going out and making a bunch of crap. Like just go and make 100 crappy videos, and that's how you're going to get better.
You are right. Oh man, you just said, okay, the magic words. So I've been putting on this, I've had this thought for a while. What makes rocks? Time and pressure, right? What makes somebody very skilled at something? Time and practice. It's the exact same situation. If you want to be rock solid at something like that, you have to practice it. And one of the things that we do here is we tell you, make it functional and we'll make it sexy later. So I want to see it with squares and boxes and it look just like terrible crap. And the reason why is the first thing that people will do is they'll look at the pretties and see how good a quality it is, rather than looking at what is it actually doing and how is this serving the purpose. And so if you can get that dialogue going, then all of a sudden you can start building stuff relatively quickly. And I'm not talking just a screen recording. I mean, even video itself. And I state that because I want to show you something, and you may or may not already know this, but we've been doing a lot of 360 video. using the Ricoh cameras. And one of the things that we've been doing is, and this is me, obviously, don't make fun of me, everybody. Yes, this is in my office. Yes, I now have a bigger office. We expanded the office. Yes, I now have a window, but that was after a decade of being in a closet. Okay. But the reason why I show you this is because what this is we, instead of hiring actors and actresses to put together this experience, what we've done, I paused it, sorry. What we've done is we actually developed out this 360 scenario where we just wrote out the scenarios based on things that we've seen in the past to see if we could quickly put something together. And what this is all we did is just use 360 video and utilized hotspots in particular places. And then what happens is you can then actually bring this in. I think we used Captivate, and we brought it in and did the interactive hotspots to where it would jump to a particular slide depending upon what you actually answered.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
I think this is the thing, right? Like, I think we are still probably just scratching the surface of how to use video well for learning. And, to the title of this particular session is how videos can improve L&D outcomes. So there's some research that TechSmith ran, and it's primarily focused on using imagery, but it also mentions video. Like, we gave this actually to people to do a legit study, right? Like, it wasn't just us like, hey, let's survey you. They actually ran some different not use cases. They ran some actual research. And one of the things that came back is that use of video and images can actually speed up the amount of learning, like how fast people are taking in the information. And I think we've yet to really crack what that means from a learning perspective with video. But we are starting to play, and I'm not, gosh, there's so many people that are smarter than can talk to better about this. But look, we are hitting on two different channels in terms of kind of that stimulus, that input. We are giving full context, like, if you're talking about like 360 video in your office, right? Like, you're getting you're able to take in a lot of information very quickly. And that's not to say reading's bad or anything, but it's just like, I can get this full picture. I know exactly what I'm looking at. And we just need to explore, how can we do that better? How can we actually pull people in and give them the right amount of information at the right time when they need it? And then figure out that scaling, the sliding scale of quality. Because, for instance, if I'm talking to I just did this a couple weeks ago, I wanted to report out some information on some data for the TechSmith Academy. And it's really looking at graphs and like Google Analytics kind of things.
Yep.
I could put that in an email, or I could make a quick video. And I chose to make a quick video, so it took 2 minutes. It was not fancy at all. Just basically like highlighting a couple things, pointing some things out. Boom, done. They could watch time and a half speed, be done. 2-minute video and a minute 30. But then there's times I'm like, look, we need to up the quality because we have different information. For instance, we did at TLDC this year, we did our interviews. They're just conversational interviews, but we wanted the quality to be really good for lots of reasons. One, because we take pride in the work that we do, but also because we want to show that there's value. And that the value isn't because we want to be fancy, but because we want people to know that, like, these people are important. This has really good information that we think that you're going to benefit from. And so having high quality signal, all it does is signal to the brain like, oh, this is valuable because it looks good. It has meaning. Now, that's not to say low quality stuff doesn't have meaning, but we're sending signals inherently throughout the process of what we create. And just knowing when to use what is really important, because I think there's going to be times when you're like, slide that up. We want super high quality. And that's why marketing always has high quality stuff, because they're signaling to you like, this is really important. But we need to be good about doing that, because we also know time, budget, opportunity, skill level all play into what we can make. And frankly, there's just times it's like, you know what, just a quick dirty screen capture, dirty as in it's messy, I didn't clean it up too much. That's enough. But we have to understand our users, what they're going to perceive, what they're going to take away from it.
It's funny you bring that up. We have a couple that we look at different segments of video. We
Hmm.
have our informal video, which is, and we've had this conversation a couple times, Matt, where we have, in my opinion, the quick and dirty, get it to individuals because they need it temporarily to answer a question. And and I'll let everybody know that's where we'll upload to screencast, because I'm like, hey, I just need to be able to give this information to somebody. Especially in my situation, a lot of times I'm in and out of meetings all day long. If I can make a 30-second video, give you the URL, send it in a chat in between things that I'm doing, what I am able to do, in my opinion, is get you that data quicker and faster, and you can access it when you need it, much like an email would be. Only I find that I move a lot faster if I'm doing the knowledge repositories or recording of a screen, and explaining it that way than I would sending an email. And so you already know this, but we have a very heavy channel on YouTube. And so basically what we've done is we've taken screencasts and we have literally developed out every single one of a private YouTube channel, and developed out training, video training, for our employees based on exactly what they're supposed to be trained on and how to do specific things with inside of our office. And like how to use Autodesk Backburner to render 3D, and how to do saving audio from the web, things that they do on a daily basis, creating our design documents. And what that does is it allows us to build this knowledge repository that doesn't just stay in the employee's head. It actually gets transferred through this to YouTube, so that the next time somebody asks about that, the first place they look is the repository, instead of pulling somebody off of their job, because we're tracking, your productivity, how effective you're doing, so on and so forth. Yeah, I know it's unlisted. I know. Unless you can find the URLs, good luck, buddy. And if you do, let me know. And the reason why they're unlisted is because we have some individuals that are not in-house. So what we're doing right now, we are looking at different repositories, which I have somebody on the phone right now that knows about a repository. And so we are looking at different repositories other than YouTube. There's informal software that's been out for a long time, like Bloomfire, which is a Michigan company, actually, that came out. Oh my gosh, he came out, I think, about 2016, 2017, that software did, which is an informal knowledge repository system. And so those are excellent for us to be able to do that. But I'm showing you guys that because not necessarily for us to Q&A that I have unlisted things on YouTube, but to see the fact that I do not have to sit down and retrain the exact same thing over and over and over again. And what I mean by that is we're a small company, and I cannot afford to pay what large companies are paying, but we pay well. We do everything we can for our employees to make them happy. But we will have turnover, just like any company. I just talked about that earlier, where you're on a 3 to 5 rule now, the average of 3 to 5 years per job. So that means your knowledge of your employees and your staff is turning over much faster. That means you're losing knowledge. And I think the one thing that I tell people when they leave our organization is, I am so happy that you are here. I am so proud to see where you've gone. But what I am heartbroken about is three things. Number one, I won't be able to interact with you on a daily basis. Number two, the talent and the skill sets that you've grown here are now going to be utilized by somebody else. And number three, the knowledge that you have that could be utilized to assist us in the future is in your head. If you can get it out of your head and onto video or paper for us, then you can leave us in a good place.
So,
And so
a quick story here, Andrew, about a company that we did some work with, small little company called Virgin Media. If you're in the UK, you might know them. They're a telecoms company, right? So they're doing cable and telephone stuff like that. So one of the things they were setting out to do, they actually, so a larger organization, I can't remember the exact number, it's 30,000 plus, so pretty big. They were in a situation where they had some legacy systems that were run by people that had been there for a long time, probably telephony systems, telephone stuff. And they had about 300, I think it was 300 to 500 people who were about ready to retire. So if you can imagine, and they're the ones with the expertise on these legacy systems that they had to maintain, had to upkeep. What do you do in those situations? Or, and this could be true, you got somebody leaving your going to leave your company. They've got some kind of knowledge that you want to maintain or retain. Well, part of their solution was they decided that they were going to invest in Snagit for the screen capture, but also for the video. And they actually gave this to those employees, had them start making documentation, videos about their process for what they were doing. And that actually worked so well that they ended up rolling out Snagit to the entire organization. And there's a guy that I know there, Cassie McRae, fantastic guy, got some great stories to tell. But what he was working on with them as an employee of Virgin before he left was actually empowering the employees to do just what you're doing, right? Is give everyone in that organization an opportunity to document something they know, because we know their subject matter experts have all this knowledge. That's actually documenting it is the easy part. It's then what do you do with it, like what this challenge, whether it's YouTube or Vimeo or something else. But they didn't quite get that far before he left. But it's really interesting. Like all of a sudden, if you empower people to share what they know, and if we can figure out a good way to organize that knowledge and make it findable, that's really a powerful thing. Imagine that way when someone does leave, whether it's because they found a better opportunity that they want to go to, because they weren't working out maybe in other ways, or they retire, whatever it might be, that knowledge is captured and you can share it. That could save time. Does it solve all the problems? No, not really. But it does solve, like, if you can capture the core knowledge, that can really speed up getting someone else up to speed doing what their job was. But there's a cost to that too, right? Because then you have to give them time to do that. You have to give them time to process, like, the age-old problem with subject matter experts is they don't know what they don't know. And so what gaps, or they don't know what they do know, and so they're not filling the gaps that maybe a new person would need. But I know they were very excited to be able to do that, because it's very powerful to have your coworkers to share knowledge with you. And even sometimes it's just like, okay, good, Andrew can stop asking me the same question 12 times. I'll just give him that video. Oh, now here comes somebody else with the same question. Here's that link to that video that I made. So I don't have to take as much time out of my day. And there might be reasons why you want to talk to them and do that kind of from the mentoring perspective where we started today, but it also might be they just need an answer. They don't care about the whole backstory of why I inputted this into this thing this way. They just want to know how to do it so they can get their job done and move on.
Yeah, I find that procedural things work very well. As you know, there's quite a few nuances to different processes and steps and flows, even with software. There's a step processes I do when utilizing Snagit, and so some of those nuances, what I find is we spend a lot of time with those nuances figuring it out for the first time. So one of the things we try to do is provide those to expedite that. Like, for instance, one of the things that I found is that when you export out of either the Samsung 360 or the Ricoh 360 camera, those videos are insanely huge, and you got to take them through. I got to take them through Adobe Media Encoder just to cut them down. And I state that because it's the only one that'll do a 360. It'll actually do the 360 optimization of the video. So you have other situations where you have to know and get those nuances. Otherwise, you're going to find employees or coworkers will spend a lot of time fiddling with things that you've already spent that time doing. And we're in the L&D or the corporate training space, even if you're in the federal government. So our sense of urgency is always there, and we're paid by the hour. So the faster that you can eliminate some of those exploratory nuances to get people up to speed, the better. What I think I told you is, I cut my sales training time in half at least by building the video repository. So that kind of gives everybody a sense of, that's my stats. It was taking me, 4.5 months. It's now taking me 2.
Yep.
And so that's easy enough for enough stats for me to put out. And it's extremely beneficial because it doesn't have to be this polished piece.
Yeah. So something that Sam had mentioned earlier in the chat was, like he talked about a project he was working on where he's like, what should we focus on? Because if it's already on YouTube, let's not focus on that. And I think there's a lot of smarts in that, right? Like people are already creating really great stuff. However, the one thing I'd say is that someone's got to curate, right? Because
Yeah.
there's so much great information, or to then also personalize. Like your sales process, I'm guessing, is very unique to your organization, what you want to hit on its values, as unique
Yep.
kind of competencies. And so it's like finding those ways to meld these things to do. And video is really great at this, I think, is bringing that information really closely together, helping people to feel that if you're doing it right, feeling that kind of connection, like in an ideal space that they feel like not only they're getting coached and mentored, even though you're not necessarily with them right at that moment, you teaching them or whoever is teaching them, the expert, is going through. So they know they're getting quality information. Even if the actual video quality is, a little pixelated or whatever, that can affect things, but really, and I think your circumstances, like, no, help me, give me a sense of purpose, give me an understanding of what I need to do, and at the time I need it. So video is really great at all those things.
I find that one of the things that we have here is we have almost like there's 20 of us in house. There's another 18 of us that are virtual. And so let's say somebody has the day off, or let's say they're working, they change their hours. Like we got one that one of our project managers just moved to Seattle, and we're in Ohio. She's been in Ohio her entire life. Her and her husband just moved to Seattle. She's still full-time employee of ours. Is virtual. But you know what I have to do now, because her schedule is vastly different than mine. I make her screencasts and send it constantly. And then what happens is I know she's gotten that information as if she was getting it face to face with me, and me clicking and showing her on the screen. She's hearing it from my voice. It's literally the closest thing to me either being on one of these with her or her being face to face with me. And I find that those quick interactions, I have it out of my hands and it's in theirs. And there's nothing better for me at the end of the day to be able to wipe my hands and say, everything's in everybody else's hands. So I find that video has made that extremely beneficial for myself and for our team. And I know there are many other people that are doing this. And then, I know we've been talking a little bit about the informal video pieces, but I've seen a ton of really good polished video also. So, I don't want people to think that we're just talking about the informal side of making screencasts the whole time. We have found that we've had to do it time and time again for learning experiences. And one of them you're about to see here, if it plays, is, we did a first person experience to where you're literally, we took a GoPro and strapped it to a helmet. And well, it's not a GoPro, it's a professional camera. Obviously, it wouldn't look like this. But what it is this is you in first person, and it puts you in a first person scenario to where you have to particularly do different situations, and it's a choose your own adventure. But again, this is a different look at the quality, look at the outcome, look at how we actually handled it, and what we did to make this a polished experience. Now, the biggest difference is this isn't quickly get it out to them and slap it out there. This was a learning experience, an actual polished module that went out to hundreds of thousands of people. So in my opinion, that is something that should be polished.
Yeah, so I know time is running short, but there's two questions, and I think one of them definitely ties into what you're saying. It's when do you do quick and dirty videos? What's your baseline of quality? Any lighting, sound, editing considerations? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that go into that from my perspective, and I think it's probably the same for you, Andrew. Is that like, who's the audience? What's my end kind of state that I'm looking for? Like I mentioned before, I did a quick, just a report at share out video about some stats. That was like literally microphone in my office, no camera, just right here, just get it out. So I'm always scaling that, and then thinking about like, oh, this is going to go in the TechSmith Academy. What does that need to look like? Do I need to go into the studio? Do I need the professional camera? And it just really it's a hard question to say like, oh, always do this or never do that. It's like it really just depends on like if I'm sending something to my like it's going to go to my CEO, I'm probably going to put a little more time on the polish,
Right.
making it look good because I want her. Again, it's about that reception I want them to receive. I want her to know like Matt knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. This is worth time. But at the same time, I also don't want it to look so polished. Like I spent like a lot of
Yeah.
resources to do it, right? Like I was finding that balance. But the share out with internals just to the marketing team, they know I know what about video. They just want the information. So it's always kind of making the trade-offs and scaling the levers. If I'm gonna go in Texas Academy stuff like that we've been doing lately, we're going to scale up quality because we want that to look good. And frankly, as a company that makes the software that makes videos, there's an expectation.
Right.
We should be making content that looks really good. Anything that's external, we're going to probably put a little bit more polish on it because we have that need. It was interesting. I went to a DevLearn, a session from State Farm. They
Yeah.
happened to be teaching about using Camtasia, kept making interactive stuff. And it was interesting to see the quality of some of the stuff they were making. They were, it's not what I'd call like super high quality. I mean, it was clever how they were doing some interactivity, but they were getting by with what they had and it was working for them. Like people were thrilled with what they were doing. They were thrilled with what they were able to show. And I think that's, understanding your audience is super important to answer that question. Not a direct answer, but hope that helps.
No, another thing that I wanted to say, because we're running out of time here, is in regards to video, we've been talking a lot about screen capture, but there's also the ability to make 3D animation that's a video, 2D animation that's a video. Those are still considered a video format file.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we didn't get into that in depth, but one of the things I can say is a lot of times I find that if it's 2D or 3D or real people, all depends upon the culture of the organization and the preference of the person that's the project champion. Not necessarily do I see a big difference in impact on if it's 2D or 3D, if it's real people or not. What I see is how engaged the person is in the actual subject matter.
I'd also add that it depends on, I would say, whether you're using animation versus real world video depends on what your subject is. Like, I'm looking at your thing, like, I'd love to go set some fire to some stuff. That'd be fun. Sure. Why not? But no way. Like, I don't have the skill nor the budget to do that. So an
Right.
animation can, like, thinking about like the need and the cost and what you're trying to convey. Like, sometimes if you're talking about really complex concepts and constructs, you're going to want to show animations to maybe display what that is versus like having just someone stand on camera and talk to you. Like that might not be interesting, that might not be conveying the right thing or the giving the right message, whereas the visual should be supporting what you're talking about, what you're teaching. If it's not supporting,
Right.
it's not lifting, it's just eye candy, don't do it. But if it's helping to convey complex concepts or show things that you need them to see, all the way, that's what you want to show.
I find oftentimes when we do video, like a professional video production, a lot of people don't take into consideration the situation of if you do a multi-day shoot, you are hiring the audio, the makeup, the lighting. You are hiring the actors and actresses on a per day rate. You must supply food, drinks, and all of this stuff to record this scene that you see right here of this guy walking through. And so one of the things that we find is oftentimes if we do that professional video, if we have to do reshoots 6 months later in evolution, it could be a nightmare. So one of the things we try to find is what if we were to do it in 3D modeling where we could quickly swap out those scenario situations and those characters without it taking, 10 different people to do it. It takes a couple of our
Right.
3D modelers and the audio narrator. So there are times where we have to look at that and figure out what would be the best option. Now, I know we're out of time. I do want to tell this because the marketing team is very happy. Speaking of videos, we did just win the 2019 Global Trend Awards for our Dog Days of Summer promotion and the Jack and Jill video that you're just looking at, which is very, very cool for all of you that haven't seen it. It's basically Jack and Jill go up the corporate hill, and it is on YouTube, and it's quite compelling if you guys get a chance, and it all rhymes. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Rhyming is that's one of my key things for any video. That's how you rapidly iterate rhyming, right?
Yeah, you got to rhyme. You got to rhyme, and you got to be careful because you got to do it with public domain songs too. So I wanted to do
Right.
French Prince of Bel Air, but they were like, nope, we're not letting that happen. So, yep. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has come today. And Matthew, thank you so much for joining me on this chat. And thank you to everybody. I know that we went on a tangent, but if you notice, if you guys have talked to us before, what you'll find is, or you've been in my sessions before, is I usually try the first 15 to 20 minutes to talk about things we haven't discussed before we get into the topic. So my apologies to anybody if that seems a little frustrating, but what I'm finding is we need to know the stories behind the people that we're interacting with. All of us enjoy all the work that you do, Matt. So thank you so much for everything that you do on the video side. And I will leave you with this. Yay to the female CEO at TechSmith. I love hearing that. We need more female CEOs in this world. And then number two, you let me know next time you're coming down this way so we can nerd it up again. Okay, bud?
You bet. And if I can put a little, just quick promo, if you guys are looking for quick and easy ways to make video from screenshots, because like those quick and easy, fast ways, like, oh, I just need to share something out. The way I did it was Snagit 2020 is brand new, and you can actually select multiple screenshots that you've taken with Snagit, and then you can right click on them and go Snagit to video. And you can make it quick and easy. You can actually narrate over the screenshots and add arrow annotations. There's also Snagit images to template. So you can we've got some templates now, quick, easy handouts, which here's the thing I'm all about after seeing reactions to this at DevLearn. If you're making a video is great, but sometimes that doesn't always carry through, like, oh, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do after I watched the video. It's like, oh, I got good information, but I don't remember the steps because it was maybe a 4-minute video. Make a quick job aid and Snagit. You can take those frames from the video, drop those in Snagit, put them in a template, and you're good to go. And it's super, super easy and looks really good. So check out Snagit 2020. That's my pitch.
I'll piggyback on that. I know he works there. I actually got to mess with it. It is awesome. First off, I can take all these screenshots and then I can highlight and do whatever I want, and it animates that part. And then what he's talking about, the job aids, you can now, it'll take all of the screenshots you select and actually build out not a storyboard, but almost like a storyboard, or like the notes section of what PowerPoint had. And it's super cool. Yeah, the upgrade price is cheaper. And if you harass Matt, and if you do bulk, I bet you Matt can hook you up. So
I know. Mention maintenance. If you have maintenance, it's free. If you don't have maintenance, it's kind of like pseudo subscription, what I call it. It gives you the next version free. You also then get access to the Snagit certification program, which was we developed and work with Tim Slade to develop. So it's pretty good. So
yeah, I was going to say Tim's a great guy, very knowledgeable, and now they have the certification course I saw, and
it's like $13, I think, $15 to get maintenance for a year.
Man, that is super cheap, cheap. I love knowing that we have products that are low barrier to entry and cost. So you guys keep up the good work over there at TechSmith and keep knocking it out. Thank you for all that you do, Matt. I appreciate it. And next time we get together, Dungeons and Dragons, buddy.
You bet. And any conference I'm at, I will try to run a game. I usually put out a word a couple weeks beforehand, try to gather people. I know conferences are probably actually the worst time to get together because we're all busy with lots of different stuff, trying to meet with people. But if anyone ever wants to play, let me know. Happy to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Matt. I will see you at the next conference. Take care.
Bye.